All right, let's dive right into this explainer and look at how we can radically transform our approach to teaching language learners. For decades, language education has kind of been stuck in a rut, relying way too heavily on these repetitive drills that completely vanish the second a student actually tries to have a normal, real world conversation. But today, we're unpacking a massive paradigm shift in how we teach pronunciation, and we're drawing on some truly fascinating research to do it. First things first, we really need to challenge this deeply held myth of the native speaker ideal. We have to stop and ask ourselves, does a perfect accent actually matter? Like, is the true purpose of language to sound exactly like you were born and raised in London or Chicago? Well, for most adult learners, acquiring a flawless, native-like accent is basically a biological rarity. And honestly, it totally misses the point of why we communicate in the first place. So, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The goal is intelligibility. 2. Looking beyond just individual sounds. 3. Identity and first language. 4. Active classroom strategies. And 5. Assessing pronunciation effectively. Okay, section 1. The goal is intelligibility. Let's see how redefining our main objective literally changes the game for everyone involved. The absolute key shift here is that our aim is functional intelligibility. Basically, our main metric of success is simply this: does the listener actually understand the message? It is absolutely crucial to separate this from accentedness, which is how strong a foreign accent sounds, and comprehensibility, which is the amount of effort it takes for the listener to understand someone. Because get this, you can actually have a really heavy accent, but still be perfectly intelligible. That's the reality. Speech can be heavily accented, yet fully 100% intelligible. Trying to completely eliminate an accent isn't just an unrealistic goal for most adults. It is honestly just entirely unnecessary for successful communication. When we prioritize clarity over some idea of native-like perfection, student anxiety drops like a rock, and their real-world confidence absolutely skyrockets. Moving right along to section 2, beyond just individual sounds. Let's look under the hood at the mechanics of speech and why we have to move past traditional bottom-up teaching. So there is a huge difference between focusing on micro, isolated sounds, known as segmental features, and the macro, suprasegmental features. Suprasegmentals are things like the stress, the rhythm, and the intonation of speech. If you think of segmentals as the individual instruments in a band, suprasegmentals are the actual music and groove of the language. And research consistently shows that prioritizing this music has a vastly greater impact on making a speaker intelligible than just obsessing over isolated consonants. And that brings us to connected speech. You know how dictionary pronunciations sound kind of stiff and robotic? That's citation form. But in real life, words bump into each other and change dramatically. Sounds link together, syllables completely disappear, and words reduce. Must-have turns into musta. If we don't teach this real-life blending, our students won't just sound unnatural. They're going to be totally lost trying to understand native speakers in the wild. All right, section 3, identity and first language. We absolutely have to ground this theory in the human element, acknowledging the learner's psychology. You just can't separate a voice from the person. Accent is intrinsically deeply tied to personal identity, ethnicity, and culture. We have to respect that some learners actually actively resist adopting a native-like accent because they want to preserve their authentic identity. They don't want to feel like imposters. Others might be desperately trying to sound native for social integration. Our job isn't to force a specific model on them, but to support whatever their personal communication goals are. Plus, a student's first language literally wires their brain to perceive and produce sounds in specific ways. This is exactly why Japanese learners often struggle to tell the difference between R and L sounds. That specific contrast just doesn't exist in Japanese. By using contrastive analysis, basically comparing their native language to English, we can actually anticipate these roadblocks and tailor our teaching perfectly. Okay, section 4, active classroom strategies. Let's take all this theory and look at how you can actively teach this right in your classroom. So there's this fantastic 5-stage framework by Celsi Mersha that acts as your pedagogical blueprint. It cleanly, systematically walks students from just figuring out how a sound is physically made to hearing it, drilling it, and finally, the most important part, integrating it into spontaneous, meaning-focused communication, like role plays. You can't just isolate a sound. You have to ride it all the way to real conversation. And to make these abstract concepts tangible, you've got to use multi-sensory tools. This is where it gets super fun. Have your students stretch a rubber band to literally feel the length of a stressed syllable. Hand out kazoos to highlight the pitch of a sentence without getting bogged down by the actual words. Or hold a tissue in front of your mouth to show the puff of air for a hard P. It is all about bringing the physical body into the learning process. Don't sleep on theater techniques either. Take shadowing, where a student speaks along with a recorded model just a split second behind them. It is an absolute game changer for helping students internalize the natural rhythm, intonation, and even the body language of English. By mirroring actors in a video, students learn how gestures naturally tie into word stress. Finally, Section 5. Assessing pronunciation effectively. Because if our goal is functional intelligibility, our testing methods need to match that. Effective assessment shouldn't just be a scary final exam, it's a continuous loop. It starts with baseline diagnostic evaluations so you know what you're working with. Then it relies heavily on ongoing classroom feedback to guide daily improvement, wrapped up with formal achievement testing to see if they mastered what you actually taught. But how do you give that ongoing feedback without totally crushing a student's confidence or stopping their flow? The trick is silent hand gestures. A quick hand motion can cue a student to fix a stress without interrupting the conversation. Outside of class, having students record themselves on their phones allows them to listen back and develop some seriously powerful self-monitoring habits. Here is the biggest takeaway for assessment. Stop policing every tiny slip-up. Only correct the systematic errors that actually cause a breakdown in understanding. If they mispronounce a vowel but you still know exactly what they meant in context, just let it go. Focus your energy on the errors that actually stop communication in its tracks. At the end of the day, the future of pronunciation instruction is all about empowering the learner. We want to build up their own self-awareness so they can catch, diagnose, and fix their own mistakes in real time out there in the real world. We're trying to build independent communicators here, not robots. So, I want to leave you with a provocative question to chew on. When you're designing your next lesson or sitting down for your next study session, what are you actually trying to achieve? Are you teaching an accent or are you teaching communication? Because I promise you, once you prioritize intelligibility over perfection, the entire world of language opens up. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and we will see you next time.